Welcome to Haines, a small town in the northern part of Alaska Panhandle, close to the Glacier National Bay Park. And we are here going to spend 2 weeks. We are visiting our friend David, whom we met 7 years ago in Russia. David traveled around the world and he visited 77 countries. Last 2 years, he decided to call Haines his home. David, thank you so much for hosting us and your wonderful house and with such a wonderful scenery. It's been a really pleasure to spend 2 weeks here with you and explore the town and explore where you're at now. And I would like to go back in time when we met 7 years ago, and it was time we met in St. Petersburg, right? And it was right before your tour around the world, correct? So going back, what do you remember? How did you feel? What did take you to prepare for this trip? And what did you have to do to make this trip around the world happen?
I had been mentally preparing myself for this trip for more than 5 years. The idea came from when I was a student in Germany, and I realized that all of the people around the world were incredibly similar, much more similar than they are different. And I wanted to use my ability to connect with people around the world in some way to promote that idea. I felt that there was areas in my life where I saw people. I felt, well, what it came down to was I was in school, and I I know you're going to edit this, so I don't care.
That's fine. Going back to time, sometimes it takes
I know,
effort,
totally.
right?
I thought about that much. So I had been planning this trip for more than 5 years, and after so long of it manifesting in my head, I knew there was absolutely no option other than completing it. And so I made it happen. I did whatever I needed to do, worked as many jobs as I needed to do, and I found a way to fund it. I had about $500 in my bank account, and I was planning on leaving in about 6 months, and I realized, geez, David, how are you ever going to do this? Go around the world for more than a year with such little money. And as luck would have it, things just fell into place. I had a friend from high school who taught me about airline miles, and that opened up so many opportunities for me. I was able to fly then around the world for free because of a YouTube video. And I got involved in the couchsurfing community because of a friend from the Czech Republic named Karel Solovitz. And I thought, oh, I just stay in hostels. And he's like, no, you got to check out this couchsurfing thing. And that enriched my experience around the world in so many ways, because I met so many open-armed, warm-hearted people from every country you could imagine through couchsurfing. So ultimately, I had the idea, and the trip fell into place in the right time, in the right place. And all the other variables just happened, I feel, the way they should have happened. And today I can say, looking back on it, I'm very happy with how everything came to be. It was meant to be.
How did you end up in Germany?
I moved to Germany when I was 19 to study at a university and play baseball for a local baseball team.
So that was after high school in California or after bachelor?
It was after 1 year of college in California. And I actually discovered Germany through a pen pal that I had from high school.
Okay, so it opened up for you opportunities to also travel and explore the world.
Absolutely.
Traveling around the world and staying with the couch surfing, but what countries that influence you the most?
Influenced me the most? Boy, I've been to more than 75 countries. It's hard to say which country influenced me the most, but I would definitely say that Germany and Russia played tremendous roles because I spent most of my time in Germany and Russia and Belarus.
What cities in Russia did you visit? I know that you visited a lot, or maybe what you didn't visit.
No, there's certainly more that I did not visit that I'd love to visit. But my first trip to Russia, I came to St. Petersburg first, and then went to Moscow, Saratov, Samara, Ufa, small little village called Kaga, south of Ufa, about 4 hours, over into Omsk, into Krasnoyarsk, Irkutsk, Okhon, and then down into Mongolia.
Wow.
And later I traveled then on to Kamchatka as well.
But what were your first impressions of Russia when you landed? I mean, you landed first in St. Petersburg, right? So
Well,
it was not much probably different.
I crossed the border from Finland in a little marshrutka.
Ah,
And
okay, that's why you know.
I came up to the border and the guy was like, "Что вы будете делать в России?" And I said, "Sorry, I don't speak Russian." And he's like, he looked at me in this strong Russian accent. He's like, "What are you going to do in Russia? You don't speak Russian." And it was true. It was like, I realized in this time, 2012, that not many people did speak English there. There weren't signs in English. The World Cup hadn't been held there. The Olympics in Sochi hadn't happened yet. And that was a unique experience, and yet it was intriguing. And I felt through the language barriers the hospitality, the warmth of the Russian soul that one got in touch with when living on a train for 3 days with people between Siberian cities, and that was communicated without words. And I felt that.
Were you ever afraid in Russia or down the streets?
No, not any more than you would be anywhere else.
How was this trip from, you took the train from Moscow to all the way to which city?
To Irkutsk.
To Irkutsk.
I've done it a few times now.
How was it, the first experience?
It's great. Platskati, third class, is the only way to go because of the interactions that one has. If you're locked in a coupe, then you don't know what other three people you're going to be with. Or if you're in first class, then you may be by yourself, and you miss out on all of those rich interactions. So I always travel third class in Russian trains, and it's by far the best.
Does it smell, right?
It smells like life.
How did the travel around the world change you? What did you feel? Did you notice any change?
Absolutely changed me. I saw people as people and not as nationalities. It did not matter where one was from. It mattered about who they were as a person. And I could see that we are far more similar than we are different, regardless of what passport we hold, what religion we believe in, or what color our skin is. I developed the saying that here and now, we are one. And the message of my project and the title of it was World as One, because I wanted to promote the ideas of one human community rather than politically dividing ourselves with borders.
And traveling back from this world tour, and what was the first city you would come back as home?
Well, Plattling, Bavaria, Germany was my center spoke in the bicycle wheel, if you will. I always came back there as regroup and recharge the batteries with my Bavarian host family. And after a year, I then returned to Chico, California, where my parents live.
Where you were born?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And what was your? Did you have any plans after coming back? What was your? Did you imagine how your life would look like? Do you want to settle down? You want to keep traveling, or what was?
I was done filming things. I was exhausted of filming everything as I wanted to document as much as possible this trip. But I was ready for something new, and I knew that I wanted to go and spend more time in a Russian-speaking country. And towards the end of my trip, I was looking at countries such as Ukraine and Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Belarus as places that I could potentially apply to work as a Fulbright, which is a federally sponsored program
that takes young graduates and stations them across the world under the watch of U.S. embassies. And ultimately, I decided for Belarus, and that was where I wanted to go spend more of my time to enrich my Russian language knowledge and invest more time in a Slavic country as a whole. I was really drawn to the Slavic culture and way of life and people. And I applied for that, and I decided on Belarus because it was the last country in the entire European continent which I had not visited, and I almost did not go because the visa process was so difficult. It was before it was open to tourism. However, I did go, and I had this experience in a metro in Minsk, my first time in Belarus, and I came into the metro and they scanned my bag. The security officer did. And I understood because they previously had a bombing in the metro, and I got that. And he heard my Russian, and he's like, "Вы иностранец? Like, are you a foreigner?" Yeah. And I said, "Yes, yeah, я американец. Yes, I'm American." And he puts the bag in and doesn't even look at the screen, and he's just like, "Oh, how is it? Na Russian, in Russian. How is it possible that our American is in Belarus? Oh my gosh, what do you think of our country? How is it here for you?" And I can tell in this moment that if I went and I invested more of my time in Belarus, that it would be an enriching experience for me and for the people of Belarus, because there were so few Americans, let alone native English speakers there. And it would be enriching for my language acquisition of Russian, and it would be good all around. And so after that experience, it really solidified my decision to work in Belarus.
What your job was about?
I lectured once a week at the university, and then I promoted mutual understanding between Americans and the people of Belarus. I presented at expos and international conferences, spoke on behalf of the U.S. Embassy when the head of the U.S. Embassy could not attend such a gathering, and everything down to hosting a one-week English camp in the woods for a bunch of kids to practice English and learn how to carve pumpkins. To speaking next to the ambassador of the UK and Bangladesh. I mean, it was all kinds of things.
Do you think that, do you feel that your job made some changes for the future generations of Belarus? Do you hope, was it a mission like that? Did you feel it like it?
I am still in contact with many of the students that I taught when I was in Belarus. And I was, for many of them, the first American that they had ever met. I think for most of the people I met in Belarus, I was the first American that they ever met in person. And I knew that that was such a unique position to be in, because if I left them with a warm feeling and a positive experience and interaction, then no matter what they heard in media and news and information from other sources about Americans or about America, they would hopefully always remember the positive one-on-one experiences that they had with an American. And I got to be that person. And I felt that was a very, very honorable position to be in, and I took it very seriously and was happy to be that first person that they met. And yeah, I do believe I left a very positive impression there.
Belarus is one of the countries which needs as much help as we can give, right? From the people who don't live in Belarus and support Belarusian people. But what do you think? What can we do?
I've done my best to share the words of my Belarusian students and today friends, and also people who are not my students, but just acquaintances who are struggling right now in this current situation in Belarus. And I've tried to share their voice with the world, to give their voice the ability to reach a greater audience. And I have some people who've written letters to world leaders
describing what they're facing. There are other people who are writing poetry about what they're feeling and experiencing right now, and it's really moving stuff. And the people of Belarus are really asking for support right now, and all the way here from Alaska, that's one way that I can help support them.
Do you believe that it may change something? I mean, we all want to believe, but what are your thoughts on that? Especially considering that you spent a year in Belarus and you've been a witness of this environment.
The only thing certain in life is change. Change will always occur. And so I do believe that Belarus is defining itself in the 21st century right now. Mm-hmm. What is Belarus today? What is 21st century Belarus? And I believe that that happiness derives from the successful adaptation to change. So I hope for happiness for my Belarusian friends, and I believe that ultimately they will inspire the change that they desire.
Yeah, and maybe hopefully they will be a good example for other countries. Thank you. It's not easy to talk about that, but let's go after that. After the Fulbright, again, open opportunities. What were your thoughts? Did you feel that you were ready to settle down and maybe stop traveling and just find peace in your hometown or somewhere in Germany?
Ready to stop traveling? Yes. Ready to settle down? Not quite. Didn't know where or with whom. And so, yeah, I knew I was entering into a new phase in life. And I described this with the glasses of passion. It's a concept that I talked to a friend from Australia about while hiking a mountain in South Africa. And it describes that we have glasses in our life, glasses of passion. And we make every decision in that time of our life with that passion in mind. How does this life decision, affect or include my passion that I'm currently fulfilling? My first one was sports. I went to first year of college specifically to play baseball, and that filled up, and that glass filled up with water, and then spilled over into the next glass, and that was traveling. And when I came back from Belarus, I could feel that my travel glass was filling up. It was starting to trickle over into a more, say, career, settle down, different class. I hadn't really defined yet the next passion. But I could feel that transition. And I knew that I wanted to stop traveling, but I didn't know where. And after a failed LASIK eye surgery in Prague, I returned to California, and I hadn't come to Alaska yet I had a cousin up here. I've been all over the world, more than 75 countries, and I hadn't been to Alaska. And I knew that I had family roots in Alaska. My great-grandfather had brought the family from Norway to Alaska and guided the first ascent to the third tallest mountain in Alaska. But I'd never been here. So I contacted my cousin and said, hey, I'm free the last week of July. Could I come up to where you are in this Haines town, Alaska, for, say, Thursday to Sunday? And she's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, great. That just happens to be the same time as our fair. And I thought, fair? Oh gosh, like carnies and, Ferris wheels. Like, all right, like, I'll have a look at it, but I never really attended fairs.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not a big fan of fairs at all.
Like throw the darts and get the stuffed animal. I showed up and right off the boat, literally fresh off the boat, I connected with my uncle, cousin's dad. It's the first time in over a decade. And within 30 minutes of getting off the boat, I was in her cheese curd truck selling cheese curds at the fair. Also never thought I'd be a carny. And with my uncle, and it was beautiful because my uncle, he lost his son, my cousin, about 10 years prior, and he never got to do adult things with his son, and I got to then do that with him, and it was an emotional time, and it was a beautiful time family time, and gosh, the fair was not what I thought. It was the biggest freaking festival this town has all year, and I had just randomly decided to come up here this exact dates of the fair, and I had an amazing week. And I left on that same ferry on that Sunday, this fjord right here, heading southbound to Juneau, and I watched as Haines disappeared in the distance, and I had this feeling, this sensation that came over myself, and I knew this sensation because I'd experienced it twice before in my life, and that sensation was that this place is going to play a very prominent role in my future. It happened the very first time I left Bavaria, or Germany, and it happened the very first time I left Russia, and so I recognized it, and I knew that. I kept that in mind, and I thought of Alaska and Haines every single day. I returned to Germany. I started a corporate job. My German host mother died, and I had to take care of her husband back in Germany, and had those family obligations, and I was there for them. And I started a corporate job in Germany, but within six weeks, I knew I was not going to stay in that position. I knew I was not going to stay in that job. Internally, I knew it, but I couldn't verbalize it yet, even to myself. And I started to get incredible seizures in my back, like muscle seizures. And it all started when a friend who I'd met trekking through Nepal, and then rendezvoused again with in Australia. She was traveling through Europe and came and stayed for a day or two, visited me. And right when I picked her up at the train station on a lunch break, I got a cramp while carrying her bag, and it was almost like a piece of that world of mine of when I was free and traveling the world had just re-entered into my life, and I felt that, and it mixed with the current environment that I was in a job selling a product that I didn't believe in, and I didn't feel was good for the customers, and my body reacted so strongly to that. And I knew that I had to make a change. It got so bad where it started in the bottom of my back and it went up all the way to the back of my neck and surrounded my throat where it hurt to eat. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't lift my neck. I went skiing and I was crying on the slopes. It was so painful. And I was like, whoa, my body is rejecting what I'm doing right now. And after 3 or 4 nights of continuously drinking between Christmas and New Year's. On New Year's Eve night, I laid it all out with my German brother Stefan, and I said, I gotta leave. I gotta quit my job and I gotta leave. And I have to quit my permanent residence procedure that I was only 1 year away from getting permanent residence in Germany for life.
Oh my God, which is like one of the most strongest passport in the future. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if I quit my job, I would lose that track. And he got it. He understood. And I declared that night to the family, New Year's Eve night, that I was not going to stay in my job, and I was pretty much giving up on a future of what I thought I would be living in Europe and in Germany, and I was going to move to Alaska. And that night I was headbanging on the dance floor because my body was so free.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so that next April, after a short little jump over into Cyprus and Beirut, Lebanon, and to Egypt, and Tunisia, I moved to Haines, and within 1 month, I knew I would spend the rest of my life here.
What do you like the most about Haines?
Well, look at it. It's the most beautiful place on earth, and it's not an easy place to live, but you find that everyone lives here for a reason. They choose to live in Haines, and therefore everyone's really on the same page of just being totally in love with the town that we live in, and we're so lucky to be a part of.
How do you see yourself in Haines in 5 years?
Oh, it's absolutely the best place on earth. And I plan on being right here in 5 years and continuing to develop the city that I love and the town I love and the 2,000 people here that I love. Yeah, I'll be right here.
what would you develop in the city? What's
I want to
your
develop
mission?
a bus network to the Yukon and connect people between the Yukon and Alaska. They're like our next door neighbors, and the Yukon is one of our favorite places to go for recreation. And I want to continue to connect the Yukoners and the Southeast Alaskans.
There are so many beautiful cities out there, right? Also, Norway has beautiful fjords. If you want something warm, Spain, California. I know people travel around the world and find their place somewhere right else. But why Haines?
Haines gives me an undescribable energy. When I'm here, I just pick up on something. I don't know what it is. It's something in the nature. It's something in the community. The community is so dynamic. The people in Haines are a huge element of why I stayed here and made this the place I want to be the rest of my life. But there's really also something in these lands, and it's not surprising because GPS hasn't worked that well here at times. I mean, we can see the cell phone tower, but we can't really get that good a cell phone reception. And there's something in these mountains. There's lots of magnetic activity in here, and there's lots of different minerals in here, and there's just something in this area just speaks with my soul. And I realized that, whoa, there's nowhere else I want to be than here.
Did you have to do something special to feel yourself like a true Alaskan?
To just be yourself. Haines brings out my inner David. And that's what I feel Alaska's all about. So many people have come here from all over the world and in many cases found themselves. To be themselves. I mean, there's
definitely a connection between humans and nature, and not even connection. Humans are within this nature, right? So I like our now mutual friend Fred said that nature is so beautiful and it's so relaxing and recharging because you don't have to do anything. You just have to be in.
Yes.
But I know that you did something like Alaskan. That's what I want to ask you.
What was that?
What about the fish, hooligan?
Oh, yes. Yes. Hey, we have a very amazing phenomenon here. It's called the hooligan run. Hooligan is actually spelled like uleshon. And it's this small oily fish that comes up here and spawns, and there are all different walks of sea life that come with it. Sea lions and orcas, there's seagulls and eagles, and they come right up to this fjord, and they're so thick that you can literally grab them out of the water with your bare hands. And it is the freshest, best sushi I've ever had, and you can literally just eat it right out of the water. And it's kind of a rite of passage in our community that one catches a hooligan, bites off the head, and then eats it. And it's...
Is it for luck, or is it...
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But it's fulfilling in a way. It's the direct full circle of life. You're like the bear there. The bear eats the salmon and gets its energy and ability to survive through the winter through it. And when you eat something so fresh, it's just, talk about farm to table. I mean, it's right there. There's something special about consuming the natural treats of these lands, be it the hooligan, be it the salmon, or the wild blueberries, raspberries, or the meat.
Moose hunting.
Yes.
And I'm reading a book by Heather Lindes, and then she's also mentioning about subsistence, that it's a very important word for Alaska, because you consume not just for having fun or adventurous lifestyle you consume for you go hunting or fishing or blueberry picking for subsistence. And also just spending 2 weeks here, I understand that weather conditions, we've just been lucky to have this sunny weather, but most of the times it's a very or heavy rains or cold days and nights, and sometimes the ferry doesn't work, right? So it's so remotely located, but people still choose to live here. What do you think about the community? What do you think, what's the common thing among the people who have chosen Haines as home?
Everyone who lives in Haines, I would say, loves Haines and chooses to live here because they love it. And that's really evident in the winter. And you see how tight-knit the community is in the winter. We come together 2-3 times a week just to play basketball, and there's 6 adult teams in a town that probably has 1,500 people in the winter, and there's 6 adult teams, and the biggest event is to come together and play and watch the basketball games. And there's monthly gatherings where people come together and riverside talks and tell stories of their lives to certain themes and fill up a whole theater for it. And there's just a bonding over the community, between the community, amidst all of the harsh conditions. Last winter we had 5 feet of snow in a week for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and yet we still made it to basketball.
Wow. I also noticed that people who live here, they are very adventurous. Even for me, you remember that in the beginning of these 2 weeks, like, oh my God, going to that mountain, climb this, and then when you tell me that you go there in winter with snowshoes and just to ski in the raw mountain between the trees. So I feel that also adventurous people choose to live in Haines and use this land and appreciate this land and live with this. And I never even heard anyone saying, oh, like about the bears. Even the bears may steal their food. They're not upset on them.
Haines is the adventure capital of America.
Right.
And the bears were here first.
Yeah, we are here. We're on their territory, right?
Yeah.
I agree. Do you think that cold weather helps communities get together?
Absolutely. The whole community here bonds around basketball too. In the winter, we'll play basketball. And for a town of about 2,000 people, there's 6 adult teams,
Wow.
2 women and 4 men.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So basketball is a thing.
It's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
In the winter.
And what else? Some
Skiing, basketball, schools in session, so you've got a lot of the school sports, cross country. Yeah, skiing is really big though. This is the adventure capital of Alaska, and you get some of the most talented skiers in the world who come here to ski.
Mm-hmm. I know that we also talked about that earlier, that there is also heli skiing here.
Yes.
And it's a big thing. Like a lot of professional skiers, they come here to.
Oh, it's world
ski.
renowned.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, people all over the world know about Haines for heli skiing.
Nice. And how much does this trip cost usually?
It'll be probably your most expensive trip of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
But it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I've never done it, but one day I hope to.
But have you been to Kamchatka, right?
Yes.
And they also do heli skiing there.
Correct.
Have you been there during winter or summer?
I was there in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
No, Kamchatka is very beautiful here. We don't have the volcanoes surrounding us like you do in Kamchatka, but you've got a lot of similar ways of life with living amongst the bears and the areas of the country that are not connected by roads and are difficult to access, and it's very similar in that regard. I think tough humans are bred out of northern lands.
Yeah. But what about people? Do you think there's some similarity? People also choose in Kamchatka to live there?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Absolutely. People live there because they love for what it stands for. They love for the style of life and the type of life that you have, where you're close with your neighbors and you help each other, and you have to get through the winter together.
Haines is in the same latitude as St. Petersburg and a small town or island or town in Kamchatka, right? You've been there.
I've been to Kamchatka.
And you've been to Kamchatka, and the nature is very similar, right? And you mentioned earlier that people choose to live in Haines, and although within this harsh weather conditions, but they love it. What's about Kamchatka, and what's about the people who you met there?
I think Kamchatka is while in the same latitude, many of the trees and the flora and fauna may be similar, but the economic conditions are certainly different. I mean, Kamchatka's got a different history than Alaska. Kamchatka was closed off to really any traveling during the Soviet Union, as it was a strategic military point. And I see that there are hardships in Kamchatka. There's good regulations and rules on the nature and how it should be used, but I would say there's little enforcement, and you see that in some ways. There's infrastructure challenges. There's really only one road that goes through the whole peninsula, and the top half of the peninsula is disconnected from the rest of Kamchatka and the rest of Russia and the rest of the world. So there's certainly different challenges in Kamchatka, and maybe not everyone there chooses to live there, but they have to live there because that's where they have their work and their best economic opportunities.
Yeah. You mentioned that the good regulations of the wild nature. How is it the same like here, or it's a little bit different?
We have, I would say, really good eyes and monitoring on our non-renewable resources. There are weirs, which are basically gates on the rivers in this area, and every single salmon that comes up in the salmon runs is counted, and those numbers are compared with previous runs, previous years, to get an idea of how many days the fishing fleets should be allowed to go out and fish, so that there's still a healthy amount of salmon coming up and spawning, so that future years will also have salmon runs. So it's really well monitored here in Alaska, and I'm thankful that we have the Department of Fish and Game, which does that.
Yeah. What's about your project, World is One? I know that it's not finished, but what's your plans of that?
I have been writing a book for 5 years, and this book is also connected to a lot of videos, and there are QR codes which you can scan, and it brings you to videos of content of stories which you just read about. So you get to visualize it in your own brain and your own mind first, and then see the actual characters and people in real life as it happened. And that coincides also with a project called 50 Countries, One Question, where YouTube videos were filmed in interviews like this, and I asked a series of questions, and these answers are then compiled together, where you see answers to a question such as, how would you define success? You see answers from all over the world to that question, compiled together from different continents, different people of different religious backgrounds, people of different demographics. And one day, if I'm fleißig enough, as one would say in German, I'd like to also create a documentary video of that 1 year I did take around the world. I have 4 terabytes of media, which I'm currently processing.
Hopefully cold winters.
Oh, yeah.
And will help you to finish this project.
I very much look forward to it.
Yeah.
But the book is the first thing to be released, and I look forward to printing a hardcover, kind of tabletop centerpiece book that captures that chapter in my life, and is also a piece that I can share with my kids one day.
Yeah. What are the 3 places you want your kids to see? you would definitely recommend?
Well, they're definitely going to get to know Germany and Russia and Nepal.
Why Nepal? We were talking about Russia and Germany earlier,
Yes.
so that's why I'm asking about Nepal specifically.
Well, Nepal is a significant place in Libby's life, and I would want that our kids could see Nepal because both of us have been there on separate occasions. And yeah, it would be neat for them to walk in the same footsteps that their mother and father did along the Annapurna circuit or up in the Mount Everest region in the Gokyo Lakes.
And what are the three places, countries you don't want to visit or don't want to get back?
Well,
For any reasons.
There's many places I won't make back to. Most places I will not be able to in this lifetime make it back to. But it's hard to say where you don't want to go because I think there's good in every place, just as there is good in every person. And you can find good people and like-minded people in any country of the world. So I don't really have three places I would not go back to. I won't go back to.
Do you remember the story during your travels which shocked you, like which you were like completely like wow, amazed in a bad and a good way?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that's not really a happy story, but like one of the most shocking things was when I was in Ukraine and I went with the help of a friend to a military hospital in Kiev, and I got to go and talk to a young wounded soldier without a leg and without an arm, and he was younger than me, and talk to him about his experience on the Eastern Front. And I thought, gosh, we came here in the metro. There's not even wheelchair accessibility there. How's this guy going to even get around when he's out of the hospital? You know, there's certainly not as much social assistance in Ukraine as, say, in Germany. And you know, he was there with his younger sibling and his mother, and I realized how fortunate I was. How fortunate I was. This guy was in his early 20s. And I went home back to the Airbnb afterwards, and I just put on my headphones and didn't really communicate with anyone for the rest of the day. That really moved me. And
Yeah, that's even hard to imagine that it's been 70 years ago during the World War II the same, and right now not so much changed in some of the countries.
Some amazing things have happened, though.
Yeah.
Look at the European Union, a collection of so many countries with different languages, different cultures, different currencies, and they all came together, and never before had that whole region been conflict-free for so long. So, yes, there are areas of the world that are still suffering, but there's also been successes that I think we need to recognize and celebrate and use as models of promoting a world as one.